With loved ones gathering for the holiday season, now is the perfect time to talk to your family about consent. Here to share why it's important and how to encourage that communication, we welcome back educator and family coach Amy Williams. So nice to see you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
This is a good topic to tackle ahead of the holidays.
Absolutely. Well, it's a great topic to tackle all the time.
Of course.
But especially now with a lot of people coming in that may know your child or they may not know, it's important to have the conversation with your children and with your extended family coming in,
right,
too.
Because we've talked a little bit about communicating with the kiddos, but you do have to have some uncomfortable conversations sometimes with adult loved ones in your family.
Sure. And if you're someone who's out of town and doesn't get to be with the young child in your family very often and you come to visit, you're excited and you love them and you wanted to hug them and kiss them.
Yeah.
And sometimes the young child might not remember you so well or might feel really uncomfortable about that.
Yeah, a couple of months in the scheme of a young child's life is a long time to not be able to maybe remember a relative that they haven't seen in that period.
Sure, and isn't it wonderful if we could create that relationship with that young child that they can trust us and that we're on their side and we will listen to what they say.
That's a great way to think of it, so that if you don't have to force things on them, they'll be more willing to accept your presence in the first place.
Not run away.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the basics of consent and how we can kind of talk about that with our family members.
Sure. Well, hopefully you've had the conversation and maybe even some rehearsal, some practice with your child, depending on how old they are, about how to say yes, how to say no, that they have the permission to change their mind. What does a yes sound like and what does a no sound like? Because we want them to be able to, children to be able to recognize our yeses and our nos. When we say stop, we mean stop. Just like we want them to listen to us, we will listen to them.
Yeah. Do you have to kind of examine what you've been taught or what you understand about consent as an adult sometimes, that the messaging has changed a lot from even when I was younger? There are things that my kids are learning that I didn't know were such valuable tools.
Sure. And sometimes when we look back at our own family of origin stuff, like where did we get the message about who could touch us and who couldn't? And sometimes those memories can bring up a whole lot of feelings. So I absolutely want your listeners to know that if you're thinking about that or trying to have a different way in your home, that you're gonna have feelings that come up, and do you have somebody that you can talk to about that? Because it can be a big leap to make those changes.
And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna figure it out and you're gonna get there and we're gonna all be safe together.
Sure, safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
And that means happy. Right?
Are there ways you can practice a conversation? Maybe there's that one loved one that you're kind of dreading addressing this with.
Right.
Are there strategies to get yourself ready to, because it can be kind of scary.
I recommend having the conversation with that adult ahead of time, before they even come. You can let them know that they're talking about it at school or that you're talking about it at home, and this is really important. So here's what we're talking about. Here's the language that we're using around it, and use the language that they can hear, because they may get mad and they may be annoyed or blow you off as the important adult.
Yeah.
So that can be hard. However, we are the big adults, we're the important adults, and that's where we step up and be the protector for our child and step in and say, oh, not right now. They looks like they're not ready for a hug right now.
Yeah.
Maybe a fist bump, maybe a wave, maybe a wink, maybe later.
Yeah.
And then we could step in, when a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 12-year-old is visibly feeling uncomfortable.
Sure. Because sometimes the answer is just maybe later, unfortunately. And we as the adults have to understand that's okay. Life goes on.
Right. They could have come in and they're in the middle of a giant art project or a huge Lego. I mean, they're focused up, and to interrupt that for a hug and a kiss might be something that your grandma wants them to do, but the kid doesn't really want to do that.
It can feel really dysregulating, I would imagine, from a kid's perspective. If you are engrossed in probably a positive activity and a loved one comes in that you haven't seen for a while and you're going, whoa, 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 let me get back to my puzzle.
Right. Well, dysregulating and disrespectful.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want people to come and interrupt us when we're in the middle of something, right?
What do you do if you encounter a loved one who is not receptive to this conversation? I imagine most people are, okay, thanks for letting me know, let's move forward.
Right.
Are there sometimes when people dig their heels in and say, well, that doesn't work for me?
Yeah, that's where the uncomfortable conversation comes from you, the primary person in that child's life, where
Yeah.
you step in and say, well, this is what we're doing. I know it may feel uncomfortable. Maybe there's some compromise that you can
Yeah.
come up with. What are some ways? Maybe a fist bump, or maybe a high five, or maybe a maybe later. So you're having that conversation with that adult beforehand.
Of course, yeah.
Right? And then finding some way where they might feel comfortable. And you know what? The most important person to feel comfortable in that scenario is the child. Because the child is learning about boundaries and is learning about, does my word make a difference, and do people listen to me?
Right.
We want them to know that 100%. So when they get older, when they're 14 or when they're 18 and they're going to prom or they're going to speak to their boss, we want them to
Yeah.
have clear, respectful boundaries. And it starts very, very, very early and
Okay.
often have that conversation.
We're on the same team to support them, and that's
Absolutely.
the great part about it. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. It was so nice to see you.
Thank you.
Happy
Same.
holidays.
You too.
We want to remind viewers that Amy has a book that is so great for talking to kids about consent. It's called Consent, What Is That? She also covers this more in her free class online. We'll have those linked for you on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.